Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here and looking forward to chatting with you. Yeah, so I guess to go back to the beginning, I was always an animal lover as a kid, but I grew up in the suburbs of Chicago, which is a pretty metropolitan area here in the States. So there really weren't a lot of horses nearby. So I didn't get exposed to it too much early on. But when I was 14, my mom found a barn that I was able to start taking some lessons at, and I was able to volunteer there too. And right from the beginning, I was totally hooked and in love. And I was definitely one of those barn brats who spent as much time as possible at the stable, learning as much as I could and just being around the horses as much as I could. And I was really lucky. It was a great experience and gave me a great start with the horses. It was really a horsemanship focused lesson program. So, not just the riding, but I learned a lot about horse care and groundwork and training. And all of that other stuff that goes along with it. So it was really a great start for me. And I got to work with a lot of different horses, being in a busy, lesson barn. There was a wide variety of different breeds and types of horses and temperaments. And so I got a lot of great exposure to horses that way. And actually, I was able to work with and help train some Mustangs, which are our wild horses here. So that was a really cool experience too, to get to see the horses off the range and kind of watch and even help a little bit with the training of them until they would work their way into the lesson program. So yeah, that gave me a really great start into horses and everything. And then from there, I just kind of learned like basically English type riding there, centered riding kind of thing. I kind of always had dressage as an interest in the back of my mind. I was just really drawn to kind of the art form of it and the beauty of it, and the connection that I saw between the horse and the rider in the dressage that I had seen. But again, in the area that I was, there wasn't a whole lot of horses. So I didn't really have an opportunity to get too involved in it. But then I think it was like right after high school, I was invited by a friend to attend a dressage clinic at a barn that was about an hour away from us. And we walked into the barn, and the first thing that I saw was the clinician riding a beautiful buckskin Lusitano performing a piaffe. And I knew that's what I wanted to do with my life. I was hooked. So I ended up actually being able to start off as a working student at that barn with the classical dressage instructor there, and worked with her and learned from her, and just got really immersed in classical dressage, everything from the basics with young horses all the way up to Grand Prix and high school dressage. They kind of had a little bit of everything there. And I also got exposed to the Iberian horses there, so the Lusitanos and the Andalusians, and that's when I fell in love with the breed. I just love their personalities and their temperament, and yeah, just kind of fell in love with them there. While I was there, that was kind of my introduction to Liberty work as well, and kind of my first experiences with that. And again, I was really drawn to kind of the art form of it, and just that connection between the horse and the human and what could be achieved at Liberty. So I definitely got interested in that as well. And what else? I was also, while I was there, kind of got my first exposure to more like theatrical type performances. I'm sure you've heard of Cavalia. Yeah. So I actually got to see them perform while they were in Chicago, and that was amazing and inspiring. And the barn that I was at also did some kind of performances of their own, obviously on a much smaller scale than Cavalia, but we did kind of some musical type performances and, put on costumes and rode to music. And for me, that's kind of really what the dressage is all about, is just kind of the art and the beauty of it. And that's what's really kind of always drawn me to it. And Cavalia was such a huge inspiration to me to see what could be done with the horses, both the dressage and the liberty. And yeah, so that kind of all came at me while I was working at that barn there, and kind of set me on the path that has taken me to where I am today. So I was there for several years, ended up teaching lessons and training horses and kind of working as an assistant trainer. And that was awesome. And then I think it's been about 8 years. My wife and I decided to get out on our own and started our own business. And we've just kind of grown from there, just learning more about the dressage, the liberty, and kind of creating my own, philosophy and system of training too, from what I've learned from a lot of different experiences along the way. So yeah, so now I'm teaching and training and do clinics, and yeah, I just love helping people with their horses, and helping people develop better partnerships and relationships with their horse, because for me, that's the most important thing. Everything else is just, icing on the cake, but it all comes from that partnership, because you can't really have the true beauty in the dressage or the liberty if you don't have that relationship first. Yeah. Very cool. Very cool. Yeah, definitely. And just to go back to your other comment too about starting with the natural horsemanship, it was kind of interesting because I did start with kind of that more horsemanship. And then when I moved to the dressage barn, I did get away from it a little bit and kind of got really focused on the dressage. And I think that was okay for where I was at, at that time. But then I did mention, how I've kind of developed my own system, and it's kind of meshing all of that together, the horsemanship, the liberty, just putting it all together. So yeah, so that's kind of my, my philosophy and my approach. Again, very much partnership based. Like I said, that's priority over everything. And then, we take kind of a very holistic approach to working with our horses too. So we want to make sure that they're comfortable and happy in their body. So they're feeling good physically, they're in their mind. So they're not stressed, or, they understand what we're doing. There's no confusion or things like that. And, just kind of looking at everything that's involved in the horses, rather than focusing on one thing in particular. So I do groundwork, I do liberty, I do dressage in hand, dressage in the saddle, and it all has different unique benefits. So, yeah. Yeah, yeah, it really does. Yes. So I guess my mantra is keep moving forward. Um, and it comes from a Walt Disney quote, so I can't take full credit from it for it. But basically, like, if things are hard or not feeling good, just keep going, keep moving forward, keep trying new things. We're all going to run into struggles and hardships along the way. We're all going to mess up. We're all going to fail at things. I certainly have in my journey, but you just keep moving forward and things will get better and you'll learn and you'll grow. And then on the other hand, too, when things are going well, you still want to keep moving forward. So it's easy to kind of get complacent when things are going right. And something that's really important to me is constant development and growth and learning. So even when things are going well, you want to still keep moving forward, keep learning, keep growing, keep trying to better yourself, and learn more. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. So, my horse Illustre, he came to me while I was working at the dressage barn, and he was actually given to me. He was a 17-year-old Andalusian gelding, 17 at the time. And when he was given to me, I was told that he was dangerous and unrideable, and that's why he was coming to me. Um, and he was. When I would ride him, he would bolt. He would full on leap through the air like capriole style. Um, so we had some exciting times. And basically, he's a very sensitive horse, and he is not a horse that you can force to do anything. And he had gone through some training. I don't know exactly what happened to him, so I'm just making, my best guess here a little bit. But he had kind of been uh, forced into things, or maybe ridden a little too strongly or too heavy-handedly, and became very defensive over that. So anytime you would try and get him to do something and he felt uncomfortable with it, he would just blow. Um, so he was quite a challenge for me. And he's actually the one that really kind of got me into the liberty work too, because I realized that I needed to go back kind of to the beginning and really develop that partnership with him. And that was much better done on the ground, where he had a lot more freedom. And he didn't feel as, forced into things or confined or pressured. He's a horse where if he feels pressured, he doesn't react very well. So I had to really take that pressure off of him. So I did a lot of liberty work with him, and that really helped our relationship. And then he's also the horse that kind of made me realize how important my own self-development was and my own energy was in working with horses, because he's also very sensitive to my emotions and my moods. And I was dealing with some stuff at the time that he was picking up on. And you know, so that was definitely hindering our relationship. And he kind of forced me to confront some of my own issues and helped me work through things too. So he was actually there for me and helped me work through things too. So he really kind of started me on the path of self-development as well, and just paying more attention to my own energy and my own emotions and what I'm bringing to the table when I'm working with my horse. So yeah, it was quite a journey. And there's a quote by the horse trainer Josh Nickel, and it goes, riding powerful horses is like riding dragons. You never really have control, but you get a say if you are kind. So that quote kind of sums up our relationship. You know, he's a super powerful horse and I never really could control him. But through developing the relationship with him, I was able to start to get a say in what we did together. So yeah, we did a lot of liberty, and then we were able to get back to riding, and I just slowly kind of, you know, brought him along. And it was kind of a learning experience for me too, because I like to have control, and that's something that I do struggle with a little bit. So I had to really learn how to let go and just trust my horse and trust myself. And so it was a long journey, but now we've gone from when he came to me, he was being ridden in a double bridle. And not that I have anything against double bridles or bits at all or anything, but just for him, because it had been such a negative experience for him. I actually ended up moving him into a snaffle bridle, and then now I actually ride him completely bitless, and he's much happier with that. And again, I'm not against bits, but for him in particular, just kind of taking away those things that were meant to control him, and were used to control him. That's how they had been used in his case, has really helped him. And I've actually even ridden him bridleless a little bit, which has been amazing and terrifying at the same time. You know, to think about like where we've come from, and what he used to do and where we are now. It's been a pretty amazing journey. So yeah, he really transformed the way that I work with horses. Yeah, I mean, I guess to start with, it was just working at Liberty, and then kind of taking the pressure off was really huge for both him and for me. I talked about how I had some areas that I needed to work on, and I put a lot of pressure on myself too. You know, I was kind of a young upcoming trainer and really wanted to prove myself and wanted to get everything right. And so I had to take some of the pressure off myself too. And we spent a lot of time like literally just doing nothing, like just standing in the arena, or maybe just walking around together, or you know, things like that. And that really was huge. That was what kind of started us on the right track. And then from there, just really like a lot of time and patience, and again, really keeping the pressure off. So just staying where he was comfortable. So as I started riding him, just, you know, not pressuring him to do anything, but just, you know, asking, and if he was able to do it, then great. And if he wasn't, then that's fine too. So, just kind of letting him guide the direction that we went. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah. 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 Um, so I actually have an entire hour-long video on that in my virtual classroom, but I'll try and sum it up for you. um, 'Cause I think there's a lot to it. But basically, I kind of mentioned before how we look at like the horse's body, mind, and spirit. And that's kind of what I look at to determine happiness. So for their body, of course, we want to make sure that their physical needs are met. They're getting, adequate food and forage, and turnout time, and they're not in pain at all. And pain can come from a lot of different places that people often don't really think about. So things like saddle fit and bridle fit and bit fit, and you know, physical discomforts, whether it's part of the body being out of whack, or ulcers, or I mean, there's a million things. It can be quite a challenge sometimes to determine what's going on, but we do our best to make sure that our horses are feeling good physically, and also that the work that we're doing with them is going to make them feel better physically. So the purpose of dressage is really to help the horse to feel better in his body. It's kind of like, I like to think of it as like yoga for horses. Um, so, through the work that he's doing, he should be feeling better in his body. Now, of course, there's going to be some strength training, and that's can be challenging sometimes, but we want to make sure that we're not pushing the horse to the point where he's physically uncomfortable in the work that he's doing. Um, so that's kind of the body aspect of it. And then to look at his mind, we want to make sure that he's not in fear, of course, because a horse in fear, of course, isn't going to be happy. So we want to make sure that he's comfortable in the atmosphere that he's living in. He's comfortable working with people. He's getting the socialization that he needs, so that he's kind of having his needs fulfilled that way with other horses. And then in the work that he's doing, we want to make sure that he's feeling comfortable with that. So he's not feeling confusion or I guess nervousness or anything like that. Confusion is a big one. A lot of times, the reason horses don't do something when we ask them to is because they just don't understand. Um, we want to try and break things down as much as possible, make it easy for him to learn and make him feel good about learning, so that it's a rewarding process for him and actually makes him feel better rather than feeling frustrated, or like he just doesn't know what's going on and he's just trying to do the best he can, but he really has no idea. So that's kind of what we look at with the mind. And then for the spirit, this is just kind of the overarching, like, is he in a good, happy environment, or is he surrounded by like a lot of negative energy? Does he have good relationships with other horses and with people? And kind of how is your approach and your outlook when you're working with him? Like, is it happy and pleasant and fun and enjoyable, or is it more like a negative experience that's going to kind of have a negative effect on him? So those are kind of all the things that I try to look at and do my best to make sure that I'm making things possible for my horses to be as happy as possible. I'm sure if they could talk to me, they would tell me to change things, but I do my best. Mhm. Yeah. So for this, I guess I would just say like things aren't always black and white, and try to be open-minded and open to other ideas or philosophies or training styles. I feel like a lot of times people do things just because that's the way they've always done it, or that's what someone told them to do, or it worked for one horse, but it might not necessarily work for another horse. And people can become very polarized in their beliefs. So, if you pick any hot topic issue in the horse world, you've got people on both ends of the spectrum. But I usually find that the answer is kind of somewhere in the middle, and it really depends on the horse. So you should really look at what's best for your horse. And, I try to pretty much won't say never or always when it comes to horses, because they're all so different. And, I've done different things for different horses, and you really do have to be adjustable and open-minded and willing to try different things. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, exactly. And that's kind of been a big part of my journey in developing my own philosophy and system with the horses, is kind of pulling things together from all these different training styles and kind of creating what works best. And even with that, it changes, for each horse. So yeah, it's been a journey, always learning. Yeah. So I'm not really a huge spender. I did get a new cavesson recently, so that's been really helpful for my in-hand work. But for me, I really say the best thing that I ever put my money towards is furthering my education. So I try to attend clinics, I take lessons, just that's where I really want to put the majority of my focus. Yeah. Absolutely. Okay. So, there's so many people. Like, I feel like I could have dinner for a year, like every night. Um, but to try and answer your question, a few of I guess the top picks. I've got, and I'm gonna butcher the names with my horrible American accent, but Anya Baran. I love her beautiful classical. She's just so soft and beautiful and lovely, and yeah, I love her writing. Um, Alize Fremont, um, yeah, with the bridleless riding that she does, so inspiring. I would love to be able to do that. So I'd love to pick her brain on how she achieved that. um Manolo Mendez, another dressage instructor trainer, and again, he's just got such a soft, beautiful um approach to working with horses. Yeah, very inspiring. And then I know you said three, but I have one more. The last one would be Josh Nickel, who I mentioned in the quote before. He's actually more of a Western trainer, but he talks a lot about kind of the human side of things. And so I really think that's cool. He talks a lot about using your energy and your emotions and all of that kind of stuff. And I would love to hear the story behind the dragons quote too, because I'm sure there's a story there. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, so recently I've really been kind of diving more into the biomechanics and just really going deep into the hows and whys of the dressage, and from an anatomical perspective and a biomechanical perspective, and why it works the way that it does, and how everything works together. So yeah, that's kind of been my study lately, is just really going deeper into everything. Yeah, so I recently attended a clinic with Jillian Kreinbring, which I know you probably won't be able to attend a clinic in the States, but she does have some online programs. She's absolutely fantastic. I believe she is going to be offering her course online at some point as well. I would highly, 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 highly recommend it. As a way to just understand the biomechanics of correct movement. Yeah, I took a clinic with her, and I've taken some virtual lessons with her too. So that's been really fun. And then just reading stuff online, and yeah, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, again, there's like so many, and I could go on and on about books, but the couple that I recommend the most to kind of all horse people, no matter what you're doing with a horse, is Horse Brain, Human Brain. And shoot, I forget the author of that one off the top of my head, but it's called Horse Brain, Human Brain, and it talks about um, things like how the horse's brain works, and just really gives you a look at things from the horse's perspective, which is really interesting and really important, because a lot of times we approach training from a human perspective, and our horses don't think like humans, and they don't react like humans, and they don't learn like humans. So it's really important to understand things from the horse's perspective. So that's one I really recommend to like anyone who works with a horse. And then also there's a book called Sacred Spaces by Dr. Susan Fay. And she talks a lot about visualization and energy and emotions, and deepening your connection with your horse through things like that. So that's really good and really interesting too. And then kind of more towards the self-development side of things, I'm a really big fan of Jane Pike from the Confident Rider. I love her podcast, really good, especially if you deal with any kind of anxiety or nervousness, or anything like that, which I think probably a lot of us have. I know I have. A lot of us have at some point in time. So her stuff's really good. And then I'm currently listening to Brene Brown's podcast, Unlocking Us, and it's fantastic. Challenging, but fantastic, because it really kind of forces you to look at some of your stuff. And yeah, it's really good. Yeah, so I do in-person lessons and training and clinics, but then I do also have my virtual classroom, which is basically a library of videos on a wide range of topics, everything from groundwork, liberty, dressage in hand, dressage under saddle. And then there's a lot of talking about, again, the self-development and how we're approaching our horses, and how we ourselves can be better for our horses. because I always say a partnership is only as strong as its weakest link. So we spend a lot we spend a lot of time working on our horses, but we need to spend just as much time working on us, so that we're not that weakest link. Yeah. 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 So so there's a lot of that in there too. And just like I really try and get people to think about things again from their horse's perspective, and maybe from a different perspective than they've thought of things before. So yeah, I have that, and then I do also have a book that I wrote. It's called God's Heart Through a Horse's Eyes, and it just it's kind of a storytelling book. Talks a lot about like my experiences and what I've learned from horses and how they've taken me along on my spiritual journey as well. Yeah, I do have that too. Yeah. Yeah. So I guess short term, just to keep improving things, I'd love to do more bridleless riding. I would love to do more Liberty. I've started working multiple horses together at Liberty, and that's been a fun challenge. So yeah, so doing more of that. More long term, I would love to have my own facility at some point, and I really so love the equestrian theater. So my ultimate goal would be able to hold performances of that type, with the dressage and the Liberty, and even combining acrobats and dancers and that kind of thing, similar to a Cavalia style thing, but on a much smaller scale. I don't want to travel the world, but yeah, yeah. Yes, yeah, yeah. That's been a fun challenge, and that's one of those things where I always just like to try new things, and it was just something that always looked really cool to me. I'm not very good at it, but it's been a lot of fun. It's hard, but it's been a lot of fun, and it's really kind of made me think of things, like given me a better understanding for my beginner students. I'm going through the process of learning the vaulting, and a lot of the things that I need to work on, like breathing and staying centered and things like that, are all things that I tell my beginner students. So it's kind of given me a better perspective for what they're going through, because it can be easy to forget what it's like to be a beginner. Exactly. I think just listening to my horse, first of all, I think that's the most important thing. And just doing what my horse needs. And then also, again, going back to the self-development, I think it's really so important. And um, there's another quote by the trainer Dominique Barbier, and I can't remember the whole quote off the top of my head, but basically it's the horse is your mirror, and it's your reflection that you see through him, or something like that. So we don't think about how much we really affect our horses, but we have a huge effect on our horses, and it's really important to kind of look at ourselves, and see what needs to be worked on. So yeah, those two things I think have been kind of the most pivotal in helping me get to where I am now. Yeah, so I guess that would be going back to the early days with Illustre, when I was first trying to ride him and work through his issues. And again, I was kind of, that young, ambitious trainer. I wanted to prove myself. I wanted to prove that I could train this horse. And nothing that I tried was working. And it was getting worse. And it just wasn't working, and I really felt like a failure. And that was one of my issues that I had to deal with, is that being okay with failing, and learning from it, and just taking the pressure off of myself. I really, really put a lot of pressure on myself, to get everything right. Definitely. So yeah, he really forced me to kind of look at that and deal with that. And it's really set me on the path to where I am today. So as hard as it was at the time, it was definitely worth it. So yeah. Right. Yes, yes, it definitely is. So it's kind of cliche, but basically just love your horse, love yourself, and love each other. I feel like love love can fix so many things. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so I'm on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. If you just search for Tuskey Dressage, you can find me there. And then my website is tuskeydressage.com. I've got my blog on there. You can learn more about me. And then there's information about signing up for my virtual classroom if you're interested in that. So that's all on my website. And then if you're looking for my book, you can find that on Amazon or Amazon Kindle. There's also a link on my website. But if you just search God's Heart Through a Horse's Eyes on Amazon, it should pop up. So yeah. Yeah, thank you for having me. It was wonderful being here.